Councillor Gibbons.
Thank you. Let's look at some context for this. First of all, we have the national context. We have a government which is cutting deeply into public services and has a deep antipathy towards public service ethos. The Labour's position is quite clear. These cuts are too far and they're too fast. Unfortunately, this council and other councils across the land are picking up the consequences of this terrible policy. We also have a local context. We have the Kingham report, which highlighted a number of areas in relation to this. First of all, one of the recommendations is that we seek to reduce the influence of gangs in areas where they operate. Another one was to give full support for the Family Recovery Project, and the Council is indeed putting some finance into that. The third thing was to encourage community engagement, particularly with ethnic and religious communities. And I think it's a matter of concern that the Islamic Youth Club is one of those which will have its funding reduced here. I think we also need to remember some of the experiences that happen if we do not find things for young people to do. In my ward, Graveney, a couple of years ago, we had a very sad case in which an elderly man was knocked to the pavement and died as a result of kids who, for many years, had been messing around in a rather silly and playful way, but unfortunately stepped over a line, things became very serious, and a man lost his life as a result. I can't say for definite that an intervention with those children would have changed that particular incident, but I think it's worth thinking about the fact that we must try and intervene as much as possible to make sure that young people have constructive things to do and don't end up doing things which are incredibly negative and damaging to them and their communities. On our side, we do accept that patterns of need may change and that new ways of delivery may be developed. But I think the idea that somehow we pit the existing organisations against new organisations which may come up is entirely counterproductive. Clearly, simply making a smaller cake and then telling everybody we're just going to divide it up into smaller pieces is not really where we should be going with the provision of youth services in this borough, particularly if we're taking the Kingham report to heart. Of course, charities and volunteers play an important part in providing services, but we have to remember the other context we have is that many charities are now feeling increasing pressure. Overall, giving to charities in real terms is decreasing, and the absolute amount has stayed static. There's a real problem here. It's going to become more and more difficult for these organisations to raise money independently, and therefore we need to make sure that the support is there. Our suggestion is perhaps that we look to mutuals and co-ops. These are organisations which have a clear contractual relationship with the Commissioner. They have stable staffing, terms and conditions of employment for those who work for them. There are good examples in Spain, Sweden and Italy of public services being provided by such organisations. And there may be some very soon closer to home in Lambeth, and I think we need to be picking up on this opportunity. It seems to me there is a big missed opportunity here. The small grants fund, which is going to be made available to new organisations, is actually being cut by this council, despite all the trumpeting we've had about how great the opportunities are. It's gone down from £138,000 to £100,000. The fact is that there are going to be more providers trying to get slices of a much smaller cake from this council in times of economic hardship, which are going to make it very difficult for anybody really to function with any certainty in the medium to long term. We get, nationally, from David Cameron a promise to support families in deprivation and to protect frontline services. But will residents in Wandsworth, looking at the organisations and the activities which are affected, children looked after, prevention of teenage pregnancy, youth clubs, connections and career advice, see these as sensible savings or damaging cuts into the very public services which the events of this summer have shown us are absolutely vital to provide a coherent and cohesive fabric to our society? I think not.